Good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Monday evening. Now, this is like a prequel to the West Ham weekly show. It'll still be going out live about 9:15, 9:30. But I thought I'd do a little 5-minute show just to sort of bring you up to date on what's been happening today. Because the last, 12, 24 hours of news at West Ham United has been quite interesting, hasn't it? Of course, the day started where we heard that Julen Lopetegui had been sacked. TalkSport had put out a report on Twitter that had been the case, and now they're backtracking, suggesting that that hasn't quite happened yet. But I think it's a matter of when rather than if Lopetegui does go. It looks as if West Ham have made a decision that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of announcing it officially. But what I think has been interesting has been the sort of the backstory to this, as to how did TalkSport or anybody else for that matter get to hear about this the sacking rumor before it's been officially announced. Now, I'm putting two and two together and coming up with a conclusion that obviously there's been a leak, as there has been throughout this season and last season, leaking stories to the press. And you can point the finger at one or two people at West Ham that this may have been happening. And one of the protagonists is clearly Tim Steidten. Now, if you recall last season, Tim Steidten was banned from the training ground. Now, of course, we heard that it wasn't a ban, that Steidten had decided to keep his distance from the training ground in order to allow David Moyes and his staff to manage the team effectively. But we since heard, after Moyes had left, that Steidten was banned by Moyes. Moyes had banned him from coming anywhere near the training ground. Now we've heard that Steidten has decided to keep away from the training ground again. But from what we understand is that Lopetegui has fallen out with Steidten, and that's why Steidten is not going anywhere near the training ground. Now, if you remember last season, there were an awful lot of rumours being dropped about David Moyes and his position at the club. And we were hearing that Steidten had been briefing the press. Has he been doing it again? Is this what's happening? Of course, it doesn't help when we start seeing photos of Steidten in conversation with potential suitors to Lopetegui's role. Now, we understand that this photo of Steidten and Graham Potter was taken when we played Leicester City at the tail end of 2024. And apparently it could be quite innocent. They were probably having an innocent conversation. But the fact that that has now broken out, all over the press, seems to suggest that things are going on in the background. And it could be potentially that Steidten has been the one briefing the press about Lopetegui. Hence, Lopetegui, the suggestion that he's on his way out. Look, we do believe, my understanding is that Lopetegui is going, but not just yet. It's just a matter, really, of West Ham United completing any potential deal with a suitor in order to allow Lopetegui to go. Now, apparently, Graham Potter is leading the pack, and he could be the one that could be replacing Lopetegui. But we also hear that O'Neill is also throwing his hat in the ring for the role. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Gary O'Neill is going to be chosen over Potter or not. Now, we all know that Potter is the preferred choice of Karen Brady. They've got a link, and apparently Brady is pushing really hard to get Potter as our next manager. But we also know that Sullivan is not the greatest fan of Potter, hence the potential of Gary O'Neill being in the mix as well. So I think it's going to be interesting. But what is really the backdrop to all this is, how have we got here? How have we actually got to the point of believing, or the actual link came out this morning on the TalkSport channel on Twitter, that Lopetegui had been sacked. How have we got here? And all eyes really are on Tim Steidten. It looks as if Steidten could be plotting against Lopetegui. We know that the two don't get on. Lopetegui has also dropped hints throughout the season. Let's not forget his preferred journalist, Balage, the Spanish reporter, came out with some cryptic messages earlier in the season. And Lopetegui himself has sort of suggested that he doesn't have the squad available to him to be playing the style of football that he wants to play. And it's all, it's all a bit of a power struggle. Of course, Tim Steidten has got a reputation to look after. He doesn't want to be blamed for things going wrong at West Ham United. Of course, Lopetegui has got his reputation to look after, suggesting that he doesn't have the tools available to him to do the job that he's been brought in to do. It's all a bit of a mess at the moment, but this is West Ham United. We always seem to be in a mess. Now, Steidten himself has got to be a bit careful because Steidten is not out of the thick of it. We understand that Lopetegui will be gone. It's just a matter of when. But Tim Steidten as well could be the next person to go. And I don't believe he will see the season out, if the next month out as itself. We've already heard that Steidten's role in this transfer market has been demoted. He's not going to go out and buy the players he wants at will. And I know people are suggesting that Sullivan got involved and scuppering Steidten's approach to the transfer market, but I beg to differ. And I've, alluded to the first signing of the summer transfer window, Luis Guilherme, where Steidten came back. He looked like as if he couldn't come back empty-handed, and he came back with Guilherme. All right, it's great. Guilherme is now finally getting a bit of playtime, and he actually looks all right. I mean, maybe he will turn out to be a success. But of course, but no one forced Steidten's hand to go out and buy Guilherme for the 25 million that we paid for him. That was definitely a Steidten decision. And then, of course, at the end of the transfer window, where he went and got himself a injury-prone 31-year-old striker in Nicholas Füllkrug. Again, he wasn't made to go out and get him. That was another Steidten decision. And because of that, the board are not too enamored with Steidten's approach in the transfer window. I think the board and probably all of us fans thought that it was going to be a very different transfer window to what it has been. So Steidten himself, his reputation is at stake, which kind of doesn't then surprise me that maybe he's been dropping hints to the press that Lopetegui's gone. It's a power struggle, but it looks like a power struggle that neither Lopetegui nor Steidten are going to win. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 to 12 to 24 hours. My understanding is that Lopetegui will go. It's just a matter of time as to when it's officially announced. But my other understanding is that Steidten is not going to see this through to the end of the season either. It's all very interesting, isn't it? It's all going to be quite interesting over the next day or so. Do join me for the West Ham Weekly later on tonight. It'll be on around about 9:15, 9:30. Once I've got the show sorted out, I'll put out a notice on YouTube for you to follow. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all later.